we've all died in multiple timelines and yet we're still existing here. The Earth has collapsed in many different timelines and yet we're still existing.
We're declaring. When we say it is so, and we're reclaiming our power to create the reality. So it is about sovereignty and about reclaiming our power to write the story for humanity as a collective.
Own individual integration and harmonization between these energies will have a spooky action at a distance with our parents, our friends.
You're not looking for your better half because you shouldn't be looking for a half a person to begin with.
To understand the nature of reality in a more expansive, out of the matrix way.
How inevitable are certain timelines and how malleable are they at the same time?
One day, we're all going to wake up and half the population on the planet is going to remember the world ended yesterday.
Welcome back, family, to the Just Tap In podcast. As you can see, we're in sort of a different little environment today. We're bringing together a really special edition of the podcast called The Convergence, where we get together two or more beautiful minds and hearts to converge on these topics about ascension, awakening, and everything that has to do with the evolution of humanity. Today, we are joined by JJ Brighton and Elizabeth April, two powerhouse women that I am super excited to bring forward to this conversation. So, guys, it's such an honor to have you here.
Yeah, thanks so much for bringing us in.
It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, we have no idea where we're gonna go. We haven't talked about anything before this, but where I was really thinking about starting this conversation is really looking into the bigger narrative of what is happening on the planet right now. And I know that you two both bring very different perspectives, and that's why I'm really excited to see where they converge. So I guess to start off, where do you both feel that your work and information are most converging at this time?
I would say, first and foremost, our perspective, bringing in these children that are coming through and seeing all these systems crumble to make way for their templates that they're going to be architecting here as we create a different path for humanity. So as hard as it is to see so much of this happening right now, I feel like having children is really, or at least witnessing children, even for people who don't have their own children, is really allowing us to see like what that future is going to bring for them. So every time I, have seen what Elizabeth April's bringing through and what I'm bringing through together, I think all of us are doing our part to help set the stage for what's going to come forward when these kids are adults.
JJ has 8 kids, so she's speaking from experience here.
I know. She really gives me hope that you can do your mission and, raise, highly intelligent and aligned children. So she's doing it all. And I think that that gives the rest of us moms hope that we can have children and be on mission. And of course, having children is a part of the mission. So yeah, I agree. I mean, we're giving birth to the next generation and it's an exciting time. And it can be a little bit overwhelming because it's a lot of responsibility as well.
Mm-hmm. I'm getting chills because I feel like we're holding a, as JJ likes to say, template. This is a conversation that is really bringing through a lot of this divine feminine energy. And I know we'll get into that later on in the conversation, but to really set the stage, and I feel so honored to hold space for both of you in this way, is where do you both see that the world is at currently? I know in the last few weeks, so much has come to the surface right now. I have a tweet pulled up here by Donald Trump saying, like, we're going to release the alien files now, and we just had the e-files and all that other stuff. Where do you feel we're both at right now, especially entering this new year? If you wanna start us off.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's obvious that we're just collapsing the old system, both at an individual sort of country level and then individually at, just within ourselves, but then collectively as well. We're just like collapsing everything. And a lot of people are looking at the planet and saying that it's going to get a lot worse or it is worse. But it's not. We're just purging out the corruption that's always been there. So it's like everything that's been hiding in the shadows is now being seen in the light. And so, I mean, even with the e-files, I know you don't want to say it. I just say it because I say, fuck it. But with those files being released, I have so many people coming out of the woodwork saying, oh my God, you were talking about this 10 years ago. And for me, it's old hat. But for a lot of people, it's so shocking. And it's like, okay, it's go time. After we get over the stage of corruption, then what? And that's what we're going to see probably 2028 and beyond is, okay, great. Now that this old system has collapsed, now what? Now where are we going? So we are just in the thick of things right now.
Yeah. I also want to echo what she was saying because I feel like there's a vacuum being created. That's why so many people are being called to do things out of the norm, out of the box, and step into different templates, like I used to say, that are more conducive to what we're bringing through for what some people term as the new earth. And I think we need to keep that in mind when we're wallowing in some of what's happening, is that, yes, it's really sad. And it's very emotional for us to go through as a collective. We're processing a lot emotionally. But there's also new coming in and there's vacuums being created. And what are we choosing to declare, to create, and to manifest in order to fill those vacuums, like with intention rather than just letting it, do its thing? It's like, what are we intentionally and purposefully deciding to put there? And I really appreciate a lot of the content that's coming out from the spiritual community. I think it's really kind of activated people to be like, we're declaring this and we're declaring that. I mean, that word declaring came into a gathering I did just the other day. And she's like, I think we just need to start declaring. And I said, yeah, we're not predicting. We're declaring. When we say it is so, it is so. And we're reclaiming our power to create the reality. So it is about sovereignty and about reclaiming our power to write the story for humanity as a collective.
Yeah, I also share a lot of that excitement of the things that are coming through because for a lot of us, I started in conspiracy theories. Yeah. So it's like now all of this is coming to the surface, right? And I've had David Icke on the show a few times. And so I wanted to ask there, when it comes to this classified information, do you both feel that that is something that's going to be of the past, where a lot of the information that has been stored or hidden in different places, what happens to a population when we know the truth, when everyone is tapping into what is behind the scenes, and what can that do to our nervous systems as well?
I mean, I think originally when the truth comes out, it's always a shakeup. Like, I think all of us got started in conspiracy theories, but I mean, that's natural because when you're stuck in the third dimension, you're stuck in the matrix, you're stuck in this framework of this is all that there is in life in general. And then when you start questioning the narrative, you break out of the third dimension and you move into the fourth dimension, which is, what's behind the veil, which is just conspiracies and agendas. And like, I don't know about you guys, but that was a very individual journey for me. And it was shocking. And no one seemed to care. Like, I'm like, why is this not headline news? Like, why is not everyone talking about this? This is crazy stuff. And then you get to a point where it's so much doom and gloom, you get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And then you start to ask, there's got to be something more than just the darkness. And that's when you start the consciousness ascension and you understand polarity. You understand not just the darkness, but light as well. So yeah, it's going to throw everyone into chaos. But just like JJ was saying, like, this is when we make those declarations. And the best time to manifest or to hop timelines is when the rest of the world is in chaos, because you're not competing with anyone else trying to create their reality. Chaos keeps someone stuck. Fear keeps someone stuck, right? So if everyone else is in fear, then you're not competing with anyone else's reality. So you can just cut right through and say, well, this is what I want then, because I'm not stuck in fear. And eventually everyone will get out of their own way and will get out of the fear. But they're just processing things that we processed possibly 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10, 15 years ago.
It's so true. So true. I listen, I think a lot of people don't know this because I don't think I ever shared my conspiracy pathway on any of my platforms, because by the time I created my platform, I had already done all of that. And it's 100% true the way that she's painting the picture, because it did feel, I actually shut down completely. It was very, very tough. But there's a reason why so many people or at least a certain percentage of people went through that already, because I think it calibrated the rest of the collective to be able to deal with what's going on right now. And so we just are always looking ahead. And if you're holding a pioneering template, then you're looking ahead now again, like I said, to fill that vacuum and to fill that void, because eventually the bigger masses are going to do the same thing. But it's like just these stair steps. And that, I think, is part and parcel with a timeline, or this particular timeline, where we're not experiencing necessarily the level of collapse or apocalypse that for a long time was the trajectory we're on. And since the majority of us, or at least the critical mass of us, have rejected those massive ones, then now we're able to just incrementally, sometimes not as small of increments, right now it's a big increment, but at least to a certain degree, maintain a level that our nervous systems aren't going to completely shut down and we go into a frenzy. But again, there's a reason for that level of chaos. It is allowing us to work with time. Time is such a big part of what we're doing right now.
How do you see time as well? Because both of you are in this very multidimensional, fluid state of time, remote viewing, and you also, the work that you do with multidimensional aspects and soul integration. I want to explore that for just a moment, because I think bringing these two perspectives together can put the puzzle pieces together for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, I really got started with past life regression. So when you start to dip into that world of reincarnation and Akashic records, it's like, holy shit, over an hour of time, you can explore from birth to death multiple entire lifetimes. So what is time? So for me, I've always understood time as nonlinear. The way I like to describe it is, instead of time being A, B, and C, or past, present, future, it's more so A, B, and C stacked on top of each other. And so at any point, you can just redirect your focus to tap into any moment in the past or any moment in the future. Future time is a little bit weird because it's probability. You and I were talking about that earlier, how, you know, there isn't just one set timeline. It's an infinite number of timelines, and it's all based on probability of how many people are focused on that as the definitive reality. And so it's definitely nonlinear. It's nothing that we've been taught before. It's something that we just sort of try and quantify. But now with the solar flares hitting us and the frequencies shifting, time is shifting as well. It's slowing down, it's stopping, it's speeding up. So we're experiencing time in a very different way as well.
And JJ, you talk about the restoration of golden timelines. If that ties into how JJ just explained in any way.
Yeah, what I have really been leaning into lately is this idea of a golden timeline. This is just the verbiage that I use. I mean, everybody can plug in their own verbiage, but I use that timeline as like a master timeline that is a harmonizer. So what I actually feel like is happening right now is that certain of us are holding our focus on this golden timeline, this master timeline that's harmonizing the collapse of many, many, many timelines. So this is where all these weird instances that I've heard you share about are coming up with timelines, and like you're hopping from timeline to timeline, but they're collapsing very rapidly. Most of us, it is not conducive for us to have an awareness of it, because it would be extremely overwhelming for our mental body and our emotional body predominantly, and even our physical bodies. But there is a little reflection of this if you guys pay close attention. Everybody in humanity is picking up on it, and particularly artists. And I have noticed screenwriters and filmmakers are bringing up these themes in pop culture. And you're like, that's interesting that that's the theme of a movie coming up, and that's another theme of the movie coming up. And it's all bending and playing with time. One that just blew me out of the water recently is called Tenet. I don't know if you've ever seen Tenet. But the level that your brain had to do like gymnastics to wrap around it, it's kind of like the movie Arrival, when their language was flipping time, you know, just through the interdimensionals were speaking, and it was like nonlinear speaking, communication. In the movie, it was even just a movie. So like we're seeing it on a screen and we're like able to detach, but this is really what's happening. If we want to see it and we feel calibrated to see it, we can actually open our awareness, take a peek And that's what's actually helped me, is it feels like you can zoom out a little bit if you're able to witness time in that way. You're zooming out, and it kind of gives you this like, whew, a little bit of a, okay, we got this. So it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, my two pieces in there is that I spent the day with Robert Edward Grant just a few days ago, and we talked about the movie Arrival, and we talked about the Seraph Whorf effect, where if humanity learns to, the way that they're perceiving language can also affect how we perceive time. So since 3i Atlas, and Robert, he knew that the 3i Atlas was coming probably like July of last year. And what happened was he knew that that was going to bring new geometry to humanity. Like, it was a carrier of geometry. And that's how Robert thinks, right? In numbers and geometry. And after I was with him in Peru when 3i Atlas had its close flyby to Earth, and when we got back, he called me 2 weeks later. He's like, I've been going through this, like, just massive headaches, upgrades, bringing through new geometry. And then within a few weeks of that, he brought through a new family of geometric solids, like the platonic solids.
I saw that.
New solids of information. And I think that now he was able to discover how the right triangle is embedded in every fractal of the universe. So understanding that principle unlocks infinite numbers of new shapes and forms that we can conceive of. So that's changing our consciousness in ways that, like, we're sort of stepping back. Like, this is insane, because what can that have an effect on in our reality? I know verbiage that EA uses is glitch in the matrix. So I wanted to explore some of the glitches that both of you have perceived and witnessed in your reality since these very last energetic months of this last year, end of 2025, going now into the start of 2026. What glitches have you both experienced there,
Well,
whether personally or collectively?
Yeah, I've had a lot of like individual glitches recently. One of them was kind of weird, and it was like, it's so subtle, like especially at a personal level, like you really have to be aware of things. One of them was, it's gonna sound so weird, but I was sleeping beside my partner, and halfway through the night, I just saw that the pillow was like kind of misaligned, so I took the pillow, and in the morning, they were like, hey, you like stole my pillow in the middle of the night. And I was like, no, like you were up, you were watching TV, and like I took your pillow because it looked like your neck was like misaligned. So like I wanted to help you out. And they're like, no, you took it in the middle of the night. And I was like, no, I clearly remember like looking over, like the brightness of the TV was like on your face, and like I was falling asleep. And so it was like the exact same thing that happened, but like in a different setting, which was odd. And then there was another moment where I had my toddler, who was like 3 years old, and he was counting marbles in my hand. And so every time he counted the correct amount of marbles, like he could keep the marbles, right? So I put 2 in my hand, he counted 2. I put 7 in my hand, he counted 7.
Without him seeing?
No, he saw them,
okay.
right? So they were just like fully in my hand. But he was
She's
like,
doing some,
we're like, no,
children tests.
absolutely not. We're working on his counting. So then I put 4 in my hand, and he's counting 5 marbles. Like he's pointing at them and he's counting 5. And I'm like, no, buddy, count again, try again. I asked him to count the marbles again, probably 3 or 4 times, and he kept counting 5. And then all of a sudden I look back at my hand, and there are 5 marbles in my hand. And it was so weird because, that was just like one moment for me, but my friend was right next to me. She was visiting, and she's like, where did that 5th marble come from? And I'm like, it was the blue one, right? Because there wasn't a blue marble in my hand, but then all of a sudden there's this blue marble. And we're looking at each other, and once again he counts 5 marbles, and he's getting frustrated. And I'm like, all right, bud, like here are 5 marbles. And so my sort of thought is, was he in a timeline where 5 marbles always existed for him? And we were in a timeline where it was only ever 4 marbles. And then he actually, because he's strong enough in his intention and conviction, did he pull us into his timeline, and that 5th marble just appeared.
Hello, beautiful family. Quick one today. I just wanted to take a moment to thank each and every one of you that have subscribed to this channel. Your subscription means more than you know. Even though it's free, what you're doing is you're empowering a whole channel to be able to do this every single day and continue showing up in the way that we can with all of our resources on hand. Thank you for contributing to the growth of this channel, for sharing it with the people that you love, for creating a conscious movement of individuals that are seeking the sovereignty and the divinity of their soul. This is why we're here. And if you haven't already and you're enjoying this content, I invite you now to look below on that little button that says subscribe and welcome you properly to this community. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being who you are and being pure love and radiating that with everyone that you see. Back to the episode.
Got it.
It's weird. Weird.
Dun, dun, dun.
JJ just came back from Egypt, so
Right?
maybe there's a story there.
I have a story from Egypt that was just yesterday. So I'm like, I was thinking of something really basic. I'll try to think of something from Egypt while I share the basic thing. So recently, there was a series that I really enjoy that came back on one of the streaming platforms, and I wanted to rewatch it. And it's what I do to decompress. Like we were talking about what we do to ground and to be human again. And yeah, I just
Love
turn
Island.
just turn it all off.
Just killing brain cells. Love that for
and
you.
just sitting on the couch and, just doing your thing. And so this particular series I've watched before. It's like 20 years old, I want to say. And I'm like, it's one of those moments where you're like, I swear this is real. But there were at least 2 episodes I had never watched before. It was like a Mandela effect thing where we were in a reality where there were 2 other episodes that I've watched this series so many times. I know every single one of them. And I know, and this has happened with 2 different shows now. So it happened another time. And I was just like, oh, another show that happened with. And that was Monk, which was really, really interesting. Most people know that show. Wow. But that was one thing. And then my husband manifested a coat jacket from another timeline. One day when we were headed out to the opera, which we don't normally go to, and I was like, you used to have this black, or he said to me, he's like, what should I wear? And I was like, well, something nice, not what you have on. Put on something nice. We're going to an opera. And he goes, what happened to that jacket? And he goes, oh, you gave it to our son when we moved a couple of years ago. And I was like, yeah, I probably did. So I went into my closet, tried to, just said, good luck, find something nice. I went into my closet to grab my black blazer out of my closet. We had 2 separate closets. I went to grab my black blazer out of my closet, and sitting right next to my black blazer was the coat he thought that we had given away. It was just sitting there for him. And that was really, really fascinating, pretty intense. I have a lot to say about Egypt, but right now I can't think of a timeline glitch other than the entire grids there are designed to help us understand time and dimensions in a really easeful way, in my personal opinion, when we're geographically and physically there. It was designed as the grid itself and the earth, beyond just the monuments, beyond the temples. The earth is gridded and connected to cosmic templates that help rewire our brains, in my opinion, in kind of a subtle way, unless you really want to see it, to understand the nature of reality in a more expansive, out of the matrix way. That's my opinion about Egypt.
Yeah. No, the reason also I wanted to bring in these stories, I could probably think of thousands as well, but is because it helps us understand how malleable reality is becoming. And right now, people watching right now are probably going, I had an experience the other day that, something appeared out of nowhere, and there's a pattern in there as well. You said we never go to the opera, and all of a sudden new things start happening in our reality. When we pattern interrupt our own reality, new things start coming in. So I wanted to then expand out on how this is relating to our collective shifts in our timelines. And I know a lot of new prophecies and predictions are coming through of collapse and the days of darkness and all these different things that I wanted to explore as to how inevitable are certain timelines and how malleable are they at the same time, in your guys' perspective.
Yeah, you're right. So in the past, like 25 years ago, it was like yep, you're going to wake up, you're going to have the experience the same day that you always do. You know, the government, quote unquote, has our back, right? And it's like nothing really changes. Things were really set in stone, you know, and they have been for quite a while since the collapse of Atlantis. And now with the emergence of these new star seeds and the increasing frequencies, things are shifting rapidly. And I found that since 2020, especially, we've been flip-flopping between the third dimension and the fifth dimension, or the old Earth and the new Earth. Like in a given day, you could flip-flop like 5 different times into these different frequencies. You could be in like a bliss gratitude state and then get an email from your boss and like completely dip back down. And that's exhausting to be flip-flopping. And then at the end of 2025, so just about 2 months ago, I got the download that we're finally stabilizing the new Earth timeline. There's essentially enough light on the planet where the scales are finally being tipped over. So instead of, you know, dipping into the higher frequencies momentarily, we can stabilize into them for a longer period of time, which is really exciting. And then I do also, like, one of my predictions for 2026 was, I was just looking at the year in general, and I saw this giant mushroom cloud. And I was like, what's this about? And it seems like there's going to be some sort of cataclysmic event. And it's nothing to be scared of, because if you think about it, we've all died in multiple timelines, and yet we're still existing here. The Earth has collapsed in many different timelines, and yet we're still existing. So there is no such thing as complete collapse or death. There's just a switching of the timelines. And so what I saw is that the old Earth timeline is going to end in like a World War III nuclear type of war. And then the people who were there have the choice: do you want to essentially go into the light and then reincarnate into a different body, or do you want to simply hop over to the new Earth timeline? And I was in a podcast talking about this, and they said that there was this whole group of remote viewers, I think with the Monroe Institute, and they all, every time they looked at 2026, they saw this mushroom cloud, just like I did, which was so fascinating. And so I don't know if it's going to be in 2026 or leading up to 2028, but I think that there are going to be Christians, religious people, non-religious people, atheists, spiritualists who are going to start to feel this impending end or this impending apocalyptic sort of energy, and also having these dreams of this mushroom cloud. Then one day we're all going to wake up and half the population on the planet is going to remember the world ended yesterday. And I believe that the people who do not, right? And I believe the people who do not remember that the world ended were already shifted into the new Earth timeline. So they were already here. The people who remember that the world ended were in that timeline and chose to shift last minute.
Do you think it'll be like they had a dream? Do you think they'll feel like they had a dream?
That's what it'll feel like. That's what it'll feel like.
Okay, I had a dream. I had a dream.
I have a dream.
No, I'm not going that direction. Let me tell you this dream I had because I feel like it's related. So it was like a month ago before I went to Egypt. I was in this place that I ended up actually being at my husband was there in Portugal. Anyways, that's a whole other thing that I saw. But I was in a high-rise apartment building with some other people. And we were talking about something, and I could feel that they didn't want to know what was happening. It was like they were talking amongst themselves to keep from seeing what was going on outside. There was one person in the room that I said, do you want to know something's happening right now? I said, do you want me to tell you how timelines are shifting right now? And I knew that I could look outside, and there was some kind of sky phenomena that I could say to them, do you see this and you see that? This means that we're shifting timelines right now. But nobody else in that room cared to know what was happening. So this one person and I were looking out, and I was like, see how the sky is doing this and the sky is doing that? And then all of a sudden, this is the kind of interesting part that I'll leave up for interpretation. I have some opinions on. This giant cloud shaped like a lion head came out, like a white lion looking cloud. So you can read into that what you want to read into it. It felt benevolent, I guess you could say. It didn't feel like it was a doom type of a symbol, but it felt like we're here, which could mean Lyran. But beyond that, gets better. The buildings, there were two high-rises. And by the way, everything outside of it was countryside, which was weird. It was like I was in this urban and over there was countryside. These two high-rises start collapsing. no lie, they start doing this. And I'm in them and I'm like, okay, I need to find a spot like to just hunker down because I felt like I was going to be fine. I didn't feel super panicky. I found a spot to hunker down and I saw these two high rises collapse in slow motion. And there were people like floating down to the ground and not getting hurt, just collapsing in slow motion. So when you shared that, it just is making me think that there's something connected to the way you were portraying it, which I think is good that we're talking about this because I think a lot of people hear a lot of things. And I'm holding, like you said, divine feminine. So I'm going to bring it back to that. As a mother and with this mother heart that I have, that's the reality I want for my kids. Okay, so I'm going to till forever say the timeline I declare that I'm in is one where it feels gentle and it does not feel like this abrupt trauma, apocalyptic energy outcome, that it's a dream-like transition maybe is what I'm thinking. So, wow. And so it is.
So it is.
That's my declaration.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm getting there is for so much of human history, we've called upon women in our tribes as the oracles, as the, holders of wisdom and the stories of our tribes as well. And I feel like so much of that is coming back into, our reality in the sense of a lot of psychics. Of course, there are male psychics, but I feel like there is something emerging. And if I look at the higher than the 3D reason why we're having this conversation, a lot of it is, when I tune into it, around re-understanding and redefining that role of the feminine in our society. Not just as oracles, but also you mentioned like, I'll do anything for my kids. Also that fierce, like rageful, almost like Sekhmet type of energy. And so I wanted just to very open-endedly have a conversation around where you both see this new role of the feminine and how it relates to the new masculine that's emerging. Because it is a huge conversation that I feel like, the templates that the three of us are holding can go into many different directions with that. So I'll leave it very open-ended as to where we want to go with this. But yeah, the feminine.
You want to take this one first?
I'll kick it off. Yeah, I mean, personally, I've had my own sort of battle with like the divine feminine and masculine. I look very feminine on the outside, but I'm so divine masculine on the inside, so logical, so analytical, so A-type, so problem solving. Also a bit of a tomboy, riding motorcycles, whatever. But so what I'm noticing just at a collective level and at an individual level is it's not just the time for the divine feminine, it is the completion of the divine feminine masculine dichotomy. It's the yin yang coming together. I think it's a yin yang, I think is the proper pronunciation. But it's like our world was ruled by the toxic masculine, and because of that, there was a lot of toxic femininity coming out as well to kind of match that energy of like, well then, if you're going to be assertive, then I've got to match that, and I can't be safe in my feminine. And so now with sort of the turning of the tide and the empowerment of the woman, there's now like this relaxed energy of safety, and the men are ascending as well, which is so powerful. Like the ascension of the divine masculine really kicked off in 2025. And so there's this healing of the divine masculine. And with that, there is this grounded energy, this protection energy, but also this emotional intelligence that's coming out in the masculine. And then with the divine feminine, there's this power that's coming out. It's not just the softness and the femininity, but it's this power that's coming out. So it's like both the divine feminine and masculine are healing. And with that, there's that divine union of the masculine and feminine within each of us individually, and then it's going to be shown in the collective. It's going to take some time for that to show in the collective. It happens at an individual level first, but I always tell people, like, you're not looking for your better half, because you shouldn't be looking for a half a person to begin with. You should heal yourself and complete yourself and then find another complete person. And that's not just masculine or feminine, it's both simultaneously. And just recently we saw that quantum mechanics was able to literally take a picture of entangled particles. I don't know if you saw this, but I'm not even kidding. The photo of entangled particles is the yin yang. That's what it is. It is like all these little dots. It is a perfect yin yang symbol with the little dots on either end. That is a photo of entangled particles. That is the framework of this matrix, and that's how I feel with the masculine feminine. It's not the feminine's taking over. It's we are now healed and we can now find unity within both.
Wow, that is very resonant for me. A lot of what you said, not surprising.
Yeah.
But it's funny. My husband and I have been married for almost 30 years.
Congratulations.
And we're kind of in minority in a certain way.
Yeah.
We're
After
holding the
8
template
children.
after 8 children, or because of 8 children. Let's be completely honest. But the interesting thing is that we absolutely have felt we felt like the word divine union was not resonant for us, and we really kind of shied away from that concept. And recently, in calling in a new template for ourselves, to be completely honest with you, because we have an agreement as a collective to do this almost kind of together within a range. And I feel like we were also connected to the collective's pace. And so for us, even for us as way showers or outliers or whatever, there was a cap on where we could go. And as things are shifting for the collective, they're shifting for us. We came into this new thing, and my husband came to me one day and he says, it's quantum entanglement. That's what he said. So we don't even use the word divine union per se. We use the word, and I give him credit for this. He's the one that said it. He's like, it's quantum entanglement. In order to do that on a practical level, by the way, is this final thing, because honestly, she said everything I would have said to address the question. You have to release attachment, codependency on a very practical level, especially people from my generation. I'm a little bit older than you two, but it's this codependency and this attachment, and then to echo what EA said, this idea that someone outside of you is going to fulfill your needs, that you need to find those needs met inside yourself, and then, you'll be able to quantumly entangle much.
Love how we're bringing the science. But it's really interesting because what I wanted to explore there is these aspects of the feminine that you both feel are reemerging now, that have been sort of maybe shunned away from society. And, I even consider myself very balanced in both of my energies. I could also be very type A, productive and do all these things, head down, work for 9 hours straight. And then there's also a feminine, very caring aspect inside me that might be, I don't know, a template of the future generations as well. And if we would like to explore that, we'd like to explore that as well. As to which one of these, or what are these capacities that the feminine is being more allowed to experience in our societies? Because you said the cap in consciousness is rising, so we can experience more of the wholeness within us. What does that bring up for both of you?
I mean, it's dancing with both, It's not just for me, for many years, I was very much in my divine masculine, very connected to extraterrestrials, very much masculine, just thinking and acting and, and then swinging on the other end and being very divine feminine and very sort of sensitive and emotional and creative and empathic. And now I get to be both simultaneously. So it's really just dancing with the energies and knowing that it's not linear anymore. It is simultaneous. It is quantum. So that's where we're going collectively. But it will take a couple years to get there.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, part of what you just said that I echo, I started out very masculine. I would consider myself, maybe outwardly feminine too, but very masculine inside. I was always just, and the Arcturians were first to come through for me. It's just my go-to. And anybody in my family can witness that part of me. And I've really softened into my feminine, but brought it into balance. And beyond balance, what I've been kind of tutored on by some of my galactic teams, especially the Andromedans, they hold a very androgynous template that is multi-gender. I don't know how to explain it very well because we're so stuck on that there's two. but or even 3, like it's this really fascinating level of expression in beyond what we think of as binary gender stuff, that it kind of really requires a rewiring of your brain in order to fully comprehend. One of the cool things is that my partner and I are open to understanding our expression multidimensionally in a little bit different way. His is a little more practical, like he wouldn't say it came from aliens, but like we're open to playing now that we're really understanding this whole quantum entanglement. We're open to playing in different expressions of ourselves without outside of the confines of what we would even consider divine feminine masculine, which is like pretty cool. You know, it's pretty cool to be able to entertain these other templates. So.
One thing about quantum entanglement is what Einstein said about the spooky action at a distance. So what happens with one particle affects the other. And so I'm also thinking of that collectively of how our own individual integration and harmonization between these energies will have a spooky action at a distance with our parents, our friends, people that might not even know us, that maybe we just came across in the bathroom or something. So I'm really tuning into that. And also JJ brought up the Arcturians. We haven't really gone there a lot yet, but we mentioned how the movies right now are also showing us where collective consciousness is. And I know this year a movie called Disclosure by, I think it's Steven Spielberg, is coming out. And it's like right on the stage when humanity gets disclosed. And I know both of you are very connected with the galactic community in your own unique ways. And I wanted to explore where that converges in terms of our individual disclosure and how then that is reflected into what we see in reality. What's going to happen when Donald Trump releases these files, if he does release them to the full degree. Where is that convergence of your own connection with the galactics and then how that's having a spooky action at a distance with others?
So I would say that, just as you were mentioning, right? Like everything interacts with everything else. It's the butterfly effect. So as there's this population on planet Earth who's like, oh my God, I'm a starseed, or like aliens started talking to me in my dreams or whatever. Like we've got people popping up everywhere saying that they're getting contacted. These like average, everyday moms and dads, attorneys and bus drivers, all just starting to communicate, which is a little bit scary because the discernment isn't quite there. And they're like, I'm just going to go online and say everything that's coming to me. And they don't have any level of like discerning who are they talking to? Are they good or bad? What's the, so that's fine because everyone's got to learn their discernment in their own time. But that population that's coming out and getting that individual disclosure is then just subconsciously affecting the rest of the collective. So then at the point when we do have real disclosure with, say, government releasing documents and declassified information, then the rest of the world is kind of subtly aware of that. I forget what we were talking about earlier, but it was the same sort of thing of like, the waves of consciousness. And as long as we've got sort of even a small but powerful portion of society that believes in one thing and is focused on one thing as the truth, then everyone else is kind of being fed that without really knowing it. Kind of like we've all been controlled without knowing that we've been controlled, but we're consenting to it through not disagreeing to it, right? I think it has to happen at an individual level first, and then the rest of the world. I mean, even with a declassified document or these files that Trump may release, are people still going to believe it? I don't know, because there's a lot of people who just don't believe anything that Trump says in general. So it kind of depends on where we're at with that as well.
That's very true. It's interesting that we're bringing this up, and what I'm kind of tuning into is a concept that's come forward for me coming into the next couple of months, which is the theme of reconnecting the human family. That was the theme that was brought forward to me, was reconnecting the human family. And as I was thinking about what we were talking about, really what we're talking about is a reflection of that reconnection, but at a galactic level. So I've always said, disclosure is simply acknowledging who we are, where we've come from, and that connection to the greater parts of creation, wherever they may be in the galaxy, that we're part of something bigger. I mean, this is very generic, but true. And so as long as we're in denial that we're connected even as humanity. We're going to be in denial that we're connected to the stars. But as we start to recognize and honor that we're connected as humans, you know, it's also going to reflect there. So I love that, though, because we can make a difference at either level. We can make a difference in humanity by acknowledging that we're connected to star beings. We can actually call that template back into humanity, which has been missing and causing a lot of trauma on the planet because we have this, you know, us versus them mentality. But also people who are working on the ground crew level of just like reconnecting human beings by some of these Instagram, you know, accounts where they're just like showing interviews of people off the street and you're like, oh my gosh, and you start to cry because you're like, wow, look at that human. They're also doing something to soften the hearts to help us reconnect at the star being level as well. So that's how I see it.
Yeah, Richard Rudd of the Gene Key says that awakening is a series of softenings. So I really like that because it really ties back in. For me, what softens me the most is a conversation with my mother. And so that is bringing it back full circle with the divine feminine. And the three of us have a really full-on weekend ahead. We're at the Conscious Life Expo, and we have a lot of things to get to. So I'm going to start wrapping things up here. In tradition of the podcast, we end every show with a segment called The Final Trio. 3 questions I'll ask both of you. Before that, where would you both send people to connect with your work and everything that you have going on? JJ, where would you send people?
Pretty easy. Just go to activationswithjj.com or my Instagram is activationswithjj.
Beautiful.
Yeah, just Elizabeth April everywhere, and just released my second book called Your Anxiety is Giving Me Anxiety. And then my first book is called You're Not Dying, You're Just Waking Up. So highly recommend either of those as good reads if you're kind of struggling with things right now.
Beautiful, beautiful. So the final trio I have today is the first one. What question have you never been asked before but wish someone would ask you?
That's really difficult.
I think this is very intuitive for me coming up with this. Like, I feel like there's an unasked question that maybe people might want to hear the answer to, but it's like, do you regret bringing 8 children into a world that's this right now? And I mean, I can wholeheartely say, no, I don't regret it. I think they're equipped for it. So that's the question that pops in.
I love that. I would say the question that I've probably never been asked before that I think we should start having conversations around is, how do I not do anything? Because, you know, no matter if we're talking about politics or conspiracies or aliens or spiritual awakening, it's all information, it's action, it's movement, it's what's next. And we need to learn how to not be in what's next. We need to learn more about 0 point and just observation without action or thought. So I think that that's the question we need to start bringing up a little bit more.
Powerful. I mean, the reason I do this work is because my philosophy is that it's in the question, not the answer, that opens the mind and the heart. And so that also segues into the next one, which is, what question would you leave people with today after this conversation where we hit matrix glitches, timelines, divine feminine, divine masculine? We really covered disclosure, all of these different things. What question would you leave people with today to truly soften and open their own internal and external reality?
Yeah, I have one. Where are you giving your power away? And why? Right? If we can all look at our lives and see how we're giving our power away through distraction and focus and even belief and action, and then understand why we're doing that, we can then get to the root of what in our life is no longer serving us, and then we can change it through our objective observation. So it's really a question about power and focus and, radical responsibility.
Mine is how can you take more time to listen to your heart on a regular basis?
The synchronicities, because the last question I had for both of you today is, in your heart, ... what feels inevitable for the evolution of our species and for humanity at large?
Yeah, I think inevitably, no matter what, we're all going to find the light one way or another. And we need to realize that the light only brings us to unity. And unity means that we are collectively observing both light and darkness. So it's not supposed to be butterflies and rainbows and, lack of challenge and suffering, but it's the observation of limitation and suffering and challenge that we can enter into this place of unity where we can experience both light and dark simultaneously. So I think that that's the inevitable direction, but we need to reframe it from everything's going to be great one day to everything's going to be balanced one day.
I would say for me, a connection is inevitable, and or reconnection, if you want to frame it that way. And that applies to within and without. And the faster that we can soften to connection on every level, whether it's listening to our bodies more frequently, when we need to be still, when we need to go into 0 point, or simply connecting in our day-to-day activities, the mundane tasks that we do, like when we go to the grocery store, acknowledging people with a hello or a smile, those levels of connection are going to have a huge ripple effect on how well we cope over the next 5 to 10 years.
Beautiful. And I just wanted to say before we head out to each of you individually how much I respect and honor the work that you do and the template that you hold as women and as well as leaders in this space. And for me, having these convergence type conversations is a dream that I've had for probably the last 3 years. And I'm excited to be able to bring more of these types of conversations where instead of just a one-on-one, it's a collaborative and there's more voices involved and more perspectives involved. Because as you both said, that's what's going to bring us back to unity and a reconnection. So thank you both for saying yes in the midst of our crazy schedules this week. That's another episode of the Convergence, the special edition that we're doing. I would love to hear from all of you who you would like to see together in these types of formats and conversations. And we would just invite you, if you resonated with this work, to subscribe to our individual channels and help grow this movement so that we can continue impacting millions of lives. So thank you all, and excited for this conversation to continue in any way that it should. So,
Thank you so much.
So awesome
Yeah.
to be here. Thank you.
Beautiful.